My son's 21st birthday was supposed to be one of the happiest days of his life. We had planned it for weeks, carefully, thoughtfully, because Michael deserved it. He'd been through more in his short life than most adults ever face. Confined to a wheelchair after a childhood accident, he never complained. He adapted. He smiled. And this birthday mattered more than any other. 21 wasn't just a number. It was a milestone, a moment that reminded him he was still moving forward, even if his body couldn't. The house was full that afternoon. Friends, family, laughter, music drifting through the rooms. The smell of cake and barbecue filled the air. For the first time in a long while, I saw Michael relaxed, truly relaxed, joking with his cousins, accepting congratulations, soaking in the attention he so rarely allowed himself to enjoy. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone else. When I opened the door, my stomach tightened instantly. It was Frank. Frank was our next-door neighbor, a middle-aged man with a permanent smirk and a reputation for pushing boundaries. Loud, inconsiderate, and usually half a drink ahead of good sense. We weren't friends. We weren't even cordial. At best, we tolerated each other from a distance. He stood there holding a poorly wrapped box, swaying slightly, the sharp scent of alcohol clinging to him. "Thought I'd stop by," he said, flashing a grin. "Got the kid a present." Every instinct in my body screamed no. But with a house full of guests and Michael's special day unfolding behind me, I hesitated. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to seem rude. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. "Just for a few minutes," I said carefully. Frank didn't respond. He pushed past me like he owned the place. He dropped onto the couch, kicked his shoes up onto the snack table, right between the chips and cupcakes, and cracked open a beer he hadn't been invited to bring. Crumbs scattered. Conversations quieted. People exchanged awkward looks. Michael rolled up beside me, his voice low. "Mom, why is he here?" I forced a smile. "He said he had a gift. He won't stay long." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying, to him and to myself. Frank staggered to his feet and wandered the room, making comments that didn't quite land, laughing a little too loudly at his own jokes. Then he stopped in front of Michael. "Well," Frank slurred, gesturing at the wheelchair, "at least you never gotta worry about finding a seat, huh?" The room froze. I felt something snap inside my chest. Before I could reach him, Frank took a step backward. Too fast, too careless. He lost his balance and stumbled straight into Michael's wheelchair. The chair tipped. Michael hit the floor. The sound of it, the chair clattering, someone gasping, Michael crying out, will haunt me for the rest of my life. I rushed forward, heart pounding, helping my son back up as people crowded around us. Michael insisted he was okay, but his hands were shaking. His eyes were glossy with tears he refused to let fall. Frank laughed it off. "Relax," he said. "Didn't mean anything by it." That was it. I told him to leave. No yelling. No screaming. Just cold, controlled fury. Frank scoffed but eventually stumbled out, muttering under his breath. The party never recovered. Michael tried to be brave, but minutes later the tears came. Quiet at first, then uncontrollable. That was when I knew the day was over. I apologized to our guests, watching them leave with sympathetic expressions, and helped Michael to his room. When the house finally went silent, all I felt was rage. Frank had crossed a line. And as I sat alone that night, staring into the dark, one thought kept repeating in my mind. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I thought kicking Frank out was the end of it. I had no idea it was only the beginning, and that the very next day, he'd make sure I knew he wasn't done with us. The morning after the party, I woke up expecting the anger to fade. Didn't. If anything, it burned hotter. Michael tried to act normal at breakfast, joking half-heartedly, but I caught the way his hands trembled when he lifted his coffee mug. Frank's careless joke and the fall replayed in my head on a loop. I told myself karma would handle it. People like Frank always eventually crossed the wrong person. Later that day I went grocery shopping, hoping routine would steady my nerves. That's when I saw him. Frank stood in the dairy aisle, comparing cartons of milk like nothing had happened. When our eyes met, his lips curled into that same smug grin, the one that said he didn't regret a thing. "Well, good morning," he said. "You look like you could use a drink. Loosen up." I felt my jaw tighten. I said nothing. That silence bothered him more than yelling ever could. His smile faltered as I walked past him without a word. And in that moment something clicked in my head. Frank thrived on reactions, on discomfort, on control, so I decided to take mine back. That night, as Michael slept, I heard loud music blaring next door. Country songs rattled my windows, Frank's dog barking non-stop. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, then grabbed my phone. My first move was small but deliberate. I filed a formal noise complaint with the Homeowners Association. I also reported the dog being left outside overnight. It wasn't revenge. It was accountability. A few days later, Frank received an official warning. He didn't confront me. Not directly. Instead, he left his message on my driveway. I woke up to find his trash can tipped over, garbage smeared across the concrete, rotten food, sour milk. The stench was overwhelming. I cleaned it all myself, scrubbing until my eyes burned. I knew then this wasn't going to stop, so I changed strategies. I started talking. Carefully, casually. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't lie. I told neighbors exactly what happened at Michael's birthday. About the joke, the fall, the wheelchair. Their expressions changed immediately. Then I mentioned the trash. That's when I saw it, the shift. The quiet understanding. Frank wasn't just annoying. He was dangerous. Within days, people stopped greeting him, crossed the street when he walked by, looked at him with suspicion instead of tolerance. Frank noticed, and he didn't like it. I thought social pressure would make Frank back off. Instead, it pushed him to do something that proved just how far he was willing to go. The first time I knew Frank had lost control was when he damaged Michael's wheelchair ramp. I was pulling into the driveway when I saw his car reversing out. Too close. The tire scraped hard against the ramp's edge, leaving deep gouges in the metal. I jumped out of my car. "What the hell are you doing?" he yelled. Frank rolled down his window, unfazed. "Watch where you're standing," he said calmly. "Accidents happen." Then he sped off, nearly hitting me. My hands shook for hours afterward. That night I couldn't sleep. Instead I researched. It didn't take long to find Frank online. Social media, work profiles, a local construction company where he held a management role. I didn't threaten him. I didn't accuse him directly. I sent anonymous emails. Carefully worded. Professional. Concerned. I hinted at inappropriate behavior, volatility, potential liability, just enough to raise eyebrows. The next morning, Frank left for work without his usual swagger. Papers spilled from his folder. His shoulders were tense. By evening I knew I'd hit a nerve. That's when the notes started. The first one was tucked into our mailbox. "You think you're smart. Watch your back." Michael was the one who found it. His face drained of color as he handed it to me. I hugged him and told him everything would be okay. But it wasn't. Over the next few days, more notes appeared. Graffiti showed up on our fence. Insults. That's when I installed security cameras. And just in time. I thought cameras would scare Frank away. Instead, they captured proof of something far worse. One night, our car alarm screamed outside. I looked through the window and saw Frank slashing the tires. The footage was crystal clear. The next morning, Michael missed his therapy appointment. We were stranded, angry, exhausted. Frank left trash on our lawn again. This time I returned it with a note. "Keep your trash to yourself." That was a mistake. That night, a rock crashed through our window. Glass exploded across the living room. Michael screamed. I called the police, bat in hand, heart racing, but Frank was gone before they arrived. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers. People knew. Everyone knew. But Frank didn't stop. He escalated. I believed the worst was over. Then Frank showed up at our door. Frank arrived drunk. He pounded on the door, screaming my name, demanding to be let in. Michael hid in his room. Frank tried the handle. I called the police as he kicked the door again and again. The wood cracked. His knuckles bled. When he reached inside, I swung. The bat struck his hand. He howled in pain, and then the sirens came. Red and blue lights flooded the street. Police dragged him away as neighbors poured outside. Frank screamed threats until the door slammed shut on the squad car. I thought his arrest was the end. I was wrong, until the town finally made its choice. Charges piled up quickly. Vandalism, harassment, property damage. But the footage sealed it. Frank lost his job within weeks. Then his house. People who once ignored him now spoke openly. They testified, filed reports, shared stories. He left town quietly. Michael sleeps peacefully again. The ramp was repaired. The window replaced. But the lesson stayed with me forever. You don't protect your family by staying silent. You protect them by standing your ground, no matter who's watching.